So welcome everybody. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here. Today we're having our April meeting for the Birth through Grade 12 Family Engagement Framework 2024 update. And this is our virtual advisory committee meeting. Hola a todos y bienvenidos. Estamos muy contentos de que estén aquí. Y esta es nuestra reunión virtual del Comité Asesor para la actualización 2024 del marco de participación familiar desde el nacimiento hasta el grado 12. Y esta es la reunión del mes de abril. Thank you so much for being here and we'll start. Next slide. Muchas gracias por estar aquí y vamos a empezar. Siguiente diapositiva. Okay, so today I'm going to go over the agenda. And as you know, my name is Nayez Vivadillo, and I'm the Early Childhood Family Engagement Specialist. Y como ya me conocen, mi nombre es Nayez Vivadillo, y yo soy la especialista de primera infancia en la involucración familiar. So this is the agenda for today. Esta es la agenda de hoy. We have a welcome and an overview. Tenemos una bienvenida y un repaso. Today we'll be introducing our wonderful new education programs professional, and you'll get to hear a little bit more about her. Hoy vamos a tener la presentación de nuestra maravillosa profesional de programas educativos y estoy muy contenta y en unos momentos escucharán todo sobre ella. Then we have an icebreaker. We have a little quick icebreaker to just get us in the mood and get going through this presentation. Hoy tenemos una dinámica de grupo para romper el hielo y ponernos en esa mentalidad para empezar esta sesión. Then we'll go through the Family Engagement Framework update and the timeline extension. Iremos y revisaremos la actualización del marco de la participación familiar y la extensión de su cronograma. Then once we discuss the timeline extension, we'll go through the whole group toolkit work session. Tendremos la sesión de trabajo con todo el grupo sobre el kit de herramientas. The work session breakout room will be focusing a lot on the toolkit. So we'll be talking about the framework and its toolkit, and we'll be comparing and contrasting it. So we'll be having a breakout room session about it. Tendremos una sesión del trabajo en salas grupales. Tendremos la conversación sobre la comparación de los kits de herramientas de la participación familiar y entonces tendremos esas salas de grupos para lograr eso. Then we'll be sharing discussions from the breakout rooms and be talking about the toolkits, and as a whole we'll talk about our respective toolkits, what we liked about them and so on. And then, of course, we have the closing and the next steps. Tendremos la exposición de las charlas grupales, de los kits de herramientas que les gustaron y en fin. Y después tendremos la conclusión y los siguientes pasos. So that's our agenda for today. Esa es nuestra agenda de hoy. Next slide, please. And now I'm going to pass it over to, of course, our wonderful education programs professional. And she's going to introduce herself.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Nayez. I appreciate the warm welcome. Hola a todos. Agradezco la bienvenida y me voy a introducir. Voy a decir todo en inglés primero y después en español. I will say everything in English and then I'll translate it in Spanish. My name is Annabelle Sanchez. I am the Education Programs Professional for family engagement here at the department. I was here previously as the education programs professional for EdPrep. And I'm just gonna tell you a little bit about myself. Prior to working at the department, I was in the classroom for 12 years, working 4th and 5th grade. And during that time, I was a grade level lead. I was also a mentor teacher and an equity and diversity liaison for the Clark County School District and for my school specifically. Being in the classroom just showed me how much learning we have to gain from our students, and it made me become an advocate for them and their parents when I was able to meet with them and providing them the resources they needed for their children to succeed. And having that experience led me to go back to school, get a master's degree in curriculum and instruction with a concentration in multicultural education. So here I am today. I know a lot of you guys know my predecessor, Alberto Quintero, who's a very close friend of mine as well. And he did some great work, and I look forward to continuing and excited to work with all of you to continue with this initiatives. Buenos días todos otra vez. Yo vengo de una experiencia de 12 años en el salón. Ya llevo 2 años y medio aquí con el Departamento de Educación. Empecé como la especialista de preparación de maestros y ahora soy la especialista de involucrar familia. Y estoy muy contenta de estar aquí. Mi educación tiene que ver con una maestría en currículo y instrucción con concentración en educación multicultural. Y la razón por qué elegí esa maestría es porque teniendo la experiencia en el salón, conociendo a los estudiantes y después a los padres y a los maestros y el trabajo que podemos hacer juntos y darles los recursos a los padres para poder superarse y sentirse valorados en el salón, no solamente ellos, pero los hijos y también los maestros. Por eso es que tuve ciertas ocupaciones mientras que estuve en el salón. También fui líder de mi grado, fui maestra mentora y también fui la representante de ecuidad y diversidad para mi escuela. Estoy muy emocionada de seguir con nuestro trabajo. Tal vez ustedes conozcan a la persona que estuvo en mi posición antes, Alberto Quintero, y espero seguir trabajando con ustedes con las iniciativas que tenemos para seguir adelante. Next slide, please. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Annabelle. So now I'm going to invite everybody that needs Spanish interpretation. We are going to have the presentation we're going to open the Spanish interpretation room. So ahora les estoy invitando a todas esas personas que necesitan la interpretación en español que vayan al canal de español. Ahorita les voy a dar instrucciones de cómo hacerlo. So today we have Spanish interpretation available. Look for the interpretation globe icon at the bottom menu of your screen, or click on more or on the 3 dots at the bottom of your screen and select Spanish. Finally, you must select the word that says mute original audio feature. Turn off the original audio if you don't want to hear it in the background, and then that way you would only hear the Spanish. Hoy tenemos interpretación en español disponible. En la parte inferior de la pantalla encontrará el menú. Ahí busca el icono de interpretación representado con la imagen de un globo terráqueo. Pulse en más o en los 3 puntos si no ve el globo terráqueo. Verá una palabra que dice más o unos 3 puntitos. Pulse ahí y seleccione el idioma español. Por último, también se debe de seleccionar las palabras que dicen Mute Original Audio Feature, apagar el audio original para no escuchar el otro idioma en el trasfondo al mismo tiempo. Así es que ahora les invito a todas las personas que necesitan escuchar en español que me acompañen al canal de español. Okay, so now I'm inviting everybody that needs Spanish interpretation to go to the Spanish room. Now we can continue.
All right. Thank you, Nayesti. Nayesti will be translating from now on, so I will be speaking in English. We're going to take you back to your childhood for our icebreaker. In considering the time you have been in school, since we're talking about, if you can remember, of course, since you were in pre-K or in kindergarten up until 12th grade, who was your favorite teacher? We all have that special teacher or that teacher that we remembered the most. So we're asking you to please put the name of that teacher either in the chat, or you can feel free to come off mute to share. And we are also adding another question to that. What emotions did you feel when you thought of that teacher? So I thought of a few emotions that you might feel to kind of help you with it. Maybe you felt excited, maybe you felt valued, maybe you felt proud, maybe you felt challenged because they saw something in you that you didn't see yourself, but they helped you get to a certain point. So I'll let you guys think about that for a little bit. Oh, thank you. I love how you wrote down the emotion right next to it. Very good. Let's see. Miss Crump loved. Miss Miller valued. Mrs. Miles, first grade, grateful. Mrs. Levine loved. Oh, very nice. She's still a mentor of yours. Very nice. Yes, it's nice to keep in touch. Marta, okay. Dulce, okay, she's very sweet is what it says there. Mrs. Young made you feel safe. Oh, very, very strong emotions there. Miss Gallagher. Yeah. And the reason why we chose this icebreaker is because we want to make sure that that's what we're trying to bring as an emotion into the classroom, right? As educators, a lot of us, we want to be able to portray that emotion to our students, and not only to their students, but to their families as well. And just keeping us in mind of basically not necessarily our goal, but our purpose for doing this work is very, very genuine. Scared but challenged. Yes, I know. I thought of challenge when I thought of my husband. He said that his favorite teacher is the one that challenged him and pushed him. So that's also a different perspective. My dad was your teacher. Oh, Rachel, thank you. Yes, I agree. Parents can teach us so much as well. Miss Paula, supportive and kind. Okay, I think we are ready for our next slide. Thank you all for participating.
Hello, sorry, we just admitted a new guest. So I don't know if we can pull up our interpretation slide again. I don't see them in the participant list anymore, but as we bring in new guests, I would love to be able to revisit that. Thank you. So if you are just joining us, Nidia, si necesita ayuda, por favor avísanos por el chat, y también si quiere accesar el canal de español, está disponible allá en la parte inferior de la pantalla con interpretación, y no se olvide de marcar mute original audio para no escuchar el audio original si necesita.
Ok.
Si necesita ayuda.
Español, ya estoy.
Ok, muy bien. Este canal es para inglés y bueno, te hablo en español, pero si quiere accesar, está disponible en español. Hay que clicar en la parte inferior del teléfono, allá en la pantalla si se ve, hay un botón para presionar que dice interpretación y parece un globo pequeñito. Entonces, si lo seleccionas, puede entrar al canal de español. Si necesita ayuda, ponlo en el chat y también habla y podemos ayudarle. Gracias. Whichever slide
Ya
we
estoy en
brought,
el canal.
go ahead and return to the slide there, and we can help Nidia out in the chat, please, our support team. So we wanted to review the framework with you overall, since we have new participants joining our committee, and also since this is the first time we're able to have Annabelle joining us in this collaborative effort. So the framework overall is was created to create a shared understanding and approach to family engagement in our state across the entire educational continuum. So from birth through grade 12 and beyond. And the purpose is really to bring those family engagement strategies and guide and tools to really center family engagement through the work that we do in education. And the framework was created through a national collaboration and partnership, as well as bringing in statewide Nevada partners and families in Nevada. Were able to participate in its process. And so having this goal in mind, we want to be able to continue to align family engagement across all of the work that we do related to education. We know in education that our families and our communities are central to the work that we do. And so we really value and elevate through this framework 5 foundational principles. And so we're going to scoot to the next slide. Overall, the framework is based on best practices across the country, family engagement research, and input from our Nevada community related to family and family engagement. It's not a script. You can't go through it and just check boxes and say, I've done it, I've done it, I've done it. I'm great at family engagement. It's something that's continuously evolving and living, and the framework itself provides some of that guide. Where do we always look back to? It can be a North Star in that sense, where the 5 foundational principles of the framework, which are equity, relationships, honoring families, linked to learning and development, and building everyone's capacity, those 5 principles always provide a place for educators to return to and for parents and families to look toward what should their students' experiences be like. So the framework includes a description of those 5 foundational principles. It also includes a little bit of context around Nevada's unique circumstances and how can we do Nevada family engagement best for those who live in our great state. There's also a definition of family engagement, which we've done a little bit of work on, but that was created across the state through participation from educators and family members and community members. So next slide, please. Where we wanted to bring our just reminder of why we do gather in this space. Again, we have many people who are new participants or even just to continue to center our conversations. What is the purpose of why we're meeting? Why have we called you together at 11 a.m. on a Tuesday morning or any other time? And it's really to be a vehicle for your voices as we update this framework. So we have the 5 foundational principles. Those are our North Star. But as this document was created and published in 2021, which during COVID, right? It was created before then, but it wasn't available to our educators and to our families until we were all in a bit of a panic already. We weren't able to really disseminate or deliver the document. And so we're looking now to what did we miss? Because we know that family engagement was very critical during those COVID, during the pandemic. And so one of the things that we noticed was early childhood, ages 0 to 8, maybe felt a little bit disconnected from what was in the framework, although it claims to be birth through grade 12. As we've been gathering, we've also noticed that how any individualized age span receives attention or not is something that we're looking at now, because we noticed it for early childhood as early childhood experts, but others who have participated through our committee have said, oh, I'm in secondary education. I serve middle school and I don't feel present in this document either. And so we're really analyzing that. And that is an example of the power of our voices when we come together. And so the purpose of our committee here and through other engagement strategies is to update the framework with some of those things in mind. And we can only learn them as we continue to engage with each other. So that's why we've invited you all here. And we really, truly value your participation. One final comment on this topic is the inclusion of families and parents in the committee is a new component for this round. And so many parents have joined with us both today and in previous meetings, and we want to celebrate your voices and thank you for being here, because we want to design and create family engagement systems and strategies that work for all, which means that we have to have parent and family voices included in the process from the beginning. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the time over to Annabelle to share more about the roadmap. What does this look like?
Thank you, Rachel. I appreciate it. And thank you, Hector, for having the roadmap side by side. I think we're going to aim for having it a little bigger. And I'll continue speaking while you get that organized if you're able to. And as all of you know, much work has already been completed that relates to what is stated in this roadmap prior to my arrival. This is the current roadmap that you see here, which all we're trying to do is get it one side to be English and the other side to be in Spanish for everyone to be able to follow. And I will review the sections as soon as it's ready. There you go. That looks really good. So on the left side, you see it in Spanish, and on the right side, you see it in English. So with that in mind, going back to November of 2023, the community partners, all of you were invited to be part of the Nevada Family Engagement Framework Advisory Committee. Then in June 2023 through January of 2024, we, the Nevada Department of Education, had our first meeting with you guys, the advisory committee. In February of 2024, we met with you and other community partners to gather input and feedback on the statewide definition of family engagement. My understanding is that those initial discussions happened back then. And in March 2024, us, NDE, incorporated feedback and met with you, the advisory committee, to gather additional input and feedback on the statewide definition for family engagement. And it is my understanding that that focus was shifted, because I wasn't yet in this role, into more of the discussions of the framework. And moving on to today's meeting in April 2024, we are meeting with you, the committee, to gather input and feedback on the framework and the toolkit. We're actually going to focus on the toolkit today during today's meeting. We will revisit the framework and the definition later on. In May 2024, for next month, we plan to incorporate feedback and meet with the advisory committee and community partners to gather additional input and feedback on the framework and on the toolkit. In June, we are continuing to incorporate the feedback, meeting with you, gather final input and feedback on the framework, the definition, and the toolkit. And from June to July, we complete the preliminary draft of the updated framework, the definition, and the toolkit. July through August, we share with you, the advisory committee, the preliminary draft of the updated framework, definition, and toolkit for review. And in September, the updated framework, the definition, and the toolkit is finalized and published. And now if we could go back to the slides, please.
Thanks, Annabelle. While we transition back into the slides, I just want to place us where we are at today. So it is April of 2024. So we're about midway through that roadmap, as Annabelle was just describing. So some of those final pieces is where we are heading. And then she, of course, did describe where we have been. So we will lead with that into the next part of our conversation.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Rachel, for that input. And so now that we have reviewed the roadmap and we have gathered more insight of it, we have some considerations to determine if the timeline we have set out will allow us to successfully complete the update of the framework, and are proposing an extension of the timeline, which is the screen you see right now. This timeline extension will allow us to deeply dive into the toolkit and the definition for family engagement to finish out that work. We have a Zoom poll that's gonna ask you if you agree on extending the timeline. And I will, before we have that Zoom poll, I will go ahead and describe what you see here on the screen first. So our proposition is that we look at the toolkit in May, this upcoming month, and do an in-depth analysis focused on the format, the audience, and the content and other important components. During June, we will draft the initial draft of the toolkit and present it to you for suggestions and edits. For July, we will present the preliminary toolkit draft with our NDE suggestions and reintroduce the definition for your feedback. In August, the preliminary draft of the framework, the definition, and the toolkit with the updates will be completed by us. And in September, the draft will be reviewed by you, the advisory committee. We are aiming to finalize the final versions of the updated framework, the definition, and the toolkit from October to December. And I guess that leads to the first Zoom poll asking you, first of all, do you agree on this extension? And I think our good technical assistant, Hector's gonna
Yeah.
get that organized. Thanks.
Sorry,
No,
give
no,
me
you're
one
good.
second on that.
No, that's okay. I just want to make sure.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I ran into some technical issues. It looks like it's not letting me. It says your polling session is inactive.
Well, I do, if it helps, Hector, I do see a pop-up in my screen showing that most people, that everyone has said yes so far.
Okay.
11 out of 11, 12 out of 12. Yeah, it doesn't seem like there's a no. And I'm not sure if I'm the only one who's seen this, but I can let you guys know. It does seem to be a popular yes. There's no no's yet.
I see it as well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Kelly. Yeah, and okay, so with that in mind, I guess that leads us to our next poll question. We're aiming to extend for 3 months, leading us to the next poll question. Do you agree on extending this timeline for the 3 more months? And Hector, I know you're having technical difficulties. I'll just let you know if I see it come up. Oh, there we go. It looks like yes is popular for that one, and we appreciate everyone's input. We definitely don't want to continue with that without consulting you first. Okay, looks like 19 out of 19. Thank you. We are good to continue. All right, so we are about to move into our toolkit. Or sorry, looking more at our toolkit. So for this section, we are going to, I'm going to model whole group. That means I'm including everyone in here to model how your breakout session should look like. So there's a few things that I'm gonna just remind you as you, when you join your breakout rooms, what you should include, what should be discussed, so on and so forth. And from there, keep in mind, and this is because I see so many new participants that not everyone's going to be familiar with breakout sessions and being able to do these activities. So they might need some guidance from you guys. We, the facilitators, will be joining at least one of the breakout rooms to guide you and to help you as much as possible as well. And with that in mind, I believe there is a link to the slides of the breakout rooms that you will see. And I guess for Hector, if you're able to pull out the slides that are named April breakout session, and that way I can describe it a little bit.
You want me to pull that up on the screen?
Yes, if you have it, yeah.
Yeah,
And that way I can
you got it.
continue. Thank you. Okay, thank you so much. That's so helpful. So in here, everyone will have access to this. Now, when you're in your breakout rooms, you want to keep in mind the slides on the left-hand side, because you are not going to do all those slides. You're only going to focus on the ones that depend on the group you are at. So the first thing I want to mention is, Hector, from there you can go to slide number 3, I believe. Okay, so from there, a few things to keep in mind. Very, very important. You will be looking at a toolkit from another state. Each slide has a different toolkit, but remember, you're only doing the one for your breakout room. And to access the toolkit, there's only one way to access the toolkit we are asking you to review, and that is by clicking on the link on top. I'm not sure if you could just hover over the title. It is on the title or header of the slide, however you want to call it, but it is the link on top. I'm
Hector?
not sure.
Sorry to interrupt,
Go
Annabelle.
ahead.
Hector,
No.
would you go out of present mode so that we can see what everyone else will see? And then you can actually model that to show as we're clicking there. So same slides you were on, just not in presentation mode. And then we'll all be
Yeah,
theoretically looking at the same thing.
gotcha.
Thank you, Rachel. That's a great suggestion. So while he's getting that ready for us, okay, thank you, Hector. Perfect. Oh, I see. Okay, yes. So go ahead and go back to slide 3. And I see a lot of people there. Thank you so much for everyone who's been able to join. You will hover over where it says Connecticut, and I think we have another one for California and Maryland, and there's other toolkits. So depending on whichever breakout room you're in, you will go and hover and select that title, and that's the only way to access the toolkit. We're not going to have a different link or anything like that for you. That is the only way to access the toolkit. So once you are in your breakout room, I do want to emphasize that we have our bilingual group with our Spanish translator, and that will be the first group. So that will be the focus slide of 4. And Hector, as I say these, I'll just kind of ask you to click on it. So this will be for our bilingual group, the California Toolkit. I believe it's the short way of calling it. And then for our breakout group number 2, we're looking at slide number 5. And breakout group number 3 will focus on slide number 6. Breakout group number 4 will focus on slide number 7. And so when we go to these breakout rooms, I do want to see kind of, okay, so we have about 30 participants. Let's see. I'm trying to see what would be the ideal number.
I think
So
4 or 5 breakout groups, since there's 5 of
Mhm.
us facilitating.
Yes. And so I'm thinking about, I think there's a question in the chat. I'll let NISD translate which one the bilingual one is. It is slide number 4. And so go ahead, NISD.
Sorry, Annabelle. So don't worry about it. Everybody's gonna get a link, especially for your breakout rooms. So you'll just go to the breakout rooms, and then we're gonna go in and we're gonna provide each of the links so you don't get confused. So don't worry about it. When the breakout rooms are active, you're gonna choose a breakout room, except the one that is bilingual. So then that way you don't get confused.
Yes, thank you, NISD. And we are recommending.
So vayan a la sala de grupo.
Okay, I thought she was talking to me, sorry. Okay, so when you are there, we do recommending having, because we did see an increase in numbers, so I would say about 7 to 10 participants maybe. What did that, no, hold on. Well, yeah, it might work per breakout room. And remember, there are goals in there. We do have some of you guys, we would like for some of you guys to lead the discussions. If you notice that people aren't really participating, then maybe, you might want to be that person to initiate the discussion, and just at least the questions you will get are right there in that screen. And so then just kind of lead that discussion, and then someone else can be, just like Rachel, I'm asking her to be a note taker, and basically that person's going to be typing in where it says click to add text box, whatever ideas come up, whatever discussions, notes that happen in there. That's where you want to type it for your group. And then another main role that we would like is for whoever wants to present that information when we come back as a whole group to share. If that person can do that, maybe there's 2 people who want to present and tag team, that's fine. We just want to make sure that there's some key roles in there for you, so that you know what to do in your breakout groups, kind of like the roles that you want to have in there. Now, going back to slide number 3. Thank you. We are going to have the Connecticut Family Engagement Framework up, and Hector, are you able to have that up maybe side by side with the slides? And I know it's going to take you time, don't worry about it. And in the meantime, while he's getting that organized, let's take a look at that first question. How do we envision the state of Nevada using the toolkit? I feel that this question doesn't really necessarily require us to look at the toolkit quite yet, but it's good to have it. Thank you, Hector. But it's something we want to keep in mind, right? Our vision of how we want this toolkit to have. Maybe even going back to the original toolkit that we have, but keeping in mind, where do we want to move from there on? So please let me know. You can unmute or put it in the chat. What are some visions you have, or how do you envision the state of Nevada using the toolkit? I'll give you some time to think about it, because I know it's not an easy question.
Can I ask, while we're thinking, Annabelle, a clarifying question? How do we envision Nevada using the Connecticut engagement toolkit in this example? Or is that a different, is that alluding to a different toolkit, since the one that we're reviewing? Just want to check to make sure my feedback is on target.
Thank you, Rachel. Yes, that's a great question. I'm thinking, because we're ultimately comparing it to the toolkit we see there from Connecticut, I'm thinking number 1 is more specifically to our Nevada toolkit. Not really considering the Connecticut one, because the Connecticut one, we can definitely look at it to kind of remember what we look for in our toolkit and to guide our vision towards it. But we're specifically thinking of our State of Nevada toolkit. How do we envision our toolkit?
Thank you for the clarification. I will add the comment then on Connecticut's. There's a couple things that I like. It's short, and the table format seems pretty simple, even though I haven't read all of the details. I love that it talks about what does this look like in early childhood? What does it look like in elementary? What does it look like in after school programs? And what does it look like in middle and high school? So I really appreciate how those are broken apart in different ways. That's just a couple high level observations on the organization. So I suppose that's an umbrella term. I like the organization by age in this case.
Thank you, Rachel. I think that's great feedback for number one. So, oh, and I see the typing in there. And so that's how you would complete the first question. You're just discussing your vision basically for it. And when you're ready to move on, we will do the second question. So this one's specifically looking at the Connecticut toolkit. Does that toolkit have all the necessary family engagement components? So think of in your role and what you know about family engagement. Does it have the necessary components, whatever it might be that you're looking for? Keep in mind the toolkit is for everyone to use, educators, parents, and students. Even students, our high school students might be looking for resources in there. So does it have the necessary components? If not, what do you feel is missing? What do you feel, who can benefit from the information presented? Maybe what was liked? What did you like about it? And I know Rachel already mentioned what she really liked about it. And I'll add a little bit to that, in that I'm not sure if you guys noticed, but there's some bolded words in there that really strike out. At the same time, Hector, if I can ask you to just slowly scroll down. So in case someone's not able to pull up this toolkit, they can have an idea of what I mean and the other pages that are there. So it mentions parent-teacher home visits, community cafes, and it describes them too. Families come to Build Day. So it does provide pretty good ideas on what family engagement looks like. But as Rachel mentioned, it then goes into elementary schools. And anyone who sees something else that should be considered specifically for this Connecticut toolkit in question number 2, please let us know. I remember the heading said low impact and high impact, so I think that's also very relevant to consider. Because we all want high impact, right? But maybe we have to look at what is achievable by our school or by our organization, and maybe we have to start up low and slowly make our way to high. And so that's after school programs, which is a great opportunity for parents to be involved in after school programs, even just being there in support. I believe there's a question from Rosemary.
It's not a question, but it's a comment.
Yes.
I also like the simplicity of it. It's easy to read. It's quick.
Yeah.
My only suggestion would be that I would probably include pictures. It could even be a 2-pager, maybe make the font a little bit bigger. I think for some people this would be overwhelming. But the one piece that I do like about Nevada's is Nevada's toolkit has many links that we could
Oh.
go into for best practices. But when I looked at Connecticut's, I realized that, wow, this is so simple, easy to read. People can really see examples. And so I really liked Connecticut because of that. And so it almost seems like we could infuse both in some way. So.
Thank you. Yes, and that's exactly the type of feedback we're looking for. And so as Hector continues, I believe he's in the last page. That actually leads to my next question. Thank you so much, Rosemary. So in the last question we're asking you to consider is, was it easy to read? It may have simple language that anyone can, or most people can read, but what if it's too text heavy? So we want to make sure that when we update our framework, that our toolkits reflect our audience. So that leads to what I consider to be probably the most important question. Did you find it to be relevant, especially for your role? Is it something you can use continuously? Is it something you can refer people to? So all those questions, and if someone has anything they'd like to add, please let us know. But that's exactly what we are looking for. Did someone have something that I heard?
Oh, I did take myself off mute so that we can go ahead and open up the breakout rooms now that we've had a little bit of experience doing this together. Also, I don't see Connecticut's anymore. I think someone may have accidentally deleted it. I'm hoping that's not myself. And if that was you, we're going to try to recover it. So try not to worry about it, but be very conscious that these are live slides. So that's okay. But since Connecticut's no longer in front of us, let's go ahead and open up the breakout rooms and invite you all to conversation. What are those things that stand out to you? And of those 3 prompts that we have in the bottom right-hand side, move into conversation about those things related to the framework linked on your page. So Hector, if you can go ahead and open up the breakout rooms, then all that our participants have to do is select the room that they would like to join. So
Thank you.
Robolio is our bilingüe.
Back to the main slide, slide number 12, for us to share. And group number 1, our bilingual group. Is there anyone who would like to share your findings overall? What did you think about the toolkit you observed? I believe it was the California one.
Yo puedo compartirlo.
Oh, okay.
Creo que lo que estábamos hablando, de lo que discutimos, es que el de Nevada está un poco complejo comparado al de California. El de California es... Oh, you want me to say it in English? I'm sorry, here I am, like...
Yeah, if you're able to, yes,
Okay.
if you're able to say it in English.
Well, we discussed that the Nevada ones, it's confusing. And that it's not as visual as the one in California. So for people that do, we have a lot of our participants that this is the first time that they've joined our group and our meeting. So for them, this is a little confusing when you look at the one in California and you can hone in the different areas that, and what we have to do is kind of try to do it in a way which is easier to read for the participants, because it's really for the participants. So we have to make it in a way that it's easy for parents to read, and it's easy for everybody to be able to interpret it, I guess, because this is a little hard, especially with on all the links. And you have to remember that not everybody knows how to do that.
True. You mean accessing the links, right? Or knowing
Right.
where to click.
Right.
Okay.
So we have to remember, like, it seems like I always bring up the same thing, but we are doing this for the parents, for the teachers and the parents, and we have to take into consideration the level of understanding that our parents have.
Carol?
And I think that and we have to remember that.
Thank you. And I noticed that I just want to share in Spanish briefly that the interpretation room is open in case someone still needs it. El cuarto de interpretación en español ya está abierto para ustedes que querían el lenguaje en español. Por favor, si pueden irse allí para que puedan seguir con nuestra discusión. Gracias. Okay, I'm back. All right, well, thank you, Thelma. I appreciate it. And is there anything else before we move on? Okay.
Es que mi pensamiento siempre va it always goes to the parents. En mi yo siempre hablo de lo que es lo difícil que es para ciertos padres, porque esta caja de herramientas está hecha para los maestros y los padres. So tenemos que considerar que tiene que ser fácil hasta para mí, leer una cosa que es más complicada. No tengo el tiempo de sentarme a buscar todos los enlaces, a leer todo eso.
Yeah, so I'll just briefly translate. She said that, we have to keep in mind that this is for parents and to also be able to have those resources, and it's not always easy for them to find those resources, and as well for the teachers to keep in mind that that this is a toolkit and we're all using it to gather more information than what we already know, and we don't want it to be that complex. Thank you.
Can I add, Annabelle?
Yes.
Something that one piece of our conversation that came up was, looking at the color coding in the toolkit and how the toolkit resources mapped back into the foundational principles. So how does it map back into equity? How does it map back into honoring families? And the question of colors and how they are connected, it's linked to the visual support, and really, it is kind of confusing. But the more I sit here and think of it, I've got the paper in front of me. I have to read this introduction paragraph to understand what is going on. And it still doesn't address the colors. So looking at goal 1, goal 2, it's got all these strategies in these high impact areas, but it's very unclear how they connect back to the other and the rest of the framework. So the visual in the framework is really beautiful, right? It's got 5 principles, and they do have a visual that is very well supported, but it's the connection to the toolkit that's missing. And so there's a lot of words to describe that, and I think we need to do a better job at demonstrating what those words mean when you're using the toolkit, because we can't expect everybody to just sit here and read it. It took me this entire 20 minutes just to go back in and do it. So that's not realistic for our end user, family, teacher, administrator, community member, whoever we are. It needs to be very clear how to use the toolkit. And I think this review showed that it's not very clear.
Yes, thank you so much, Rachel. Great insight. Thank you. And I was in breakout group number 2, and I wasn't alone, but I will be the one sharing. I was with Karen, and we had some great discussions. Overall, we felt that the ripples transformation, and Hector, if you don't mind sliding just a little bit down, probably in pages 2 to 3, and because it's the same format, I'll start with what I did like. It had images, right? It had visuals, which I thought were good and to consider. However, when we tried to do a little more deep dive into it, it got a little confusing because it did seem to be a bit text heavy, and the font size was also fairly small, and we could always zoom in, but not everyone's going to know how to be able to do that. And so overall, we felt that, you know, it had some pros and cons. The structure of it itself, that was the pros and the cons, but we also found a few components we like. If you look where it says on the right hand side, community story, it provides actual kind of testimonials of what the communities have done, what parents have done, because some of them are called parent stories. And, you know, it kind of puts it, let me find the correct wording that I had. It kind of builds that relationship, you know, that it's also one of our principles that we're trying to accomplish. So we do like having those stories that are being told in there. Maybe it's not the most ideal for a toolkit. It just has kind of like a personal touch to it. Aside from that, something else we did like was how there was different components in there, like building relationships. That equity was also mentioned at some point in there. So just does seem to align with our principles, but it's hard to see where because of all the heavy text. So that's kind of our overall for the Ripples toolkit. And did we have anyone in breakout in the growing and sustaining parent engagement group?
So yes, that was me and Robin.
Okay.
So somebody was already typing on there, and by the time the groups were done, it was already moved. So I just took some notes on the side. And we spent some time discussing, of course, family engagement. We didn't dive too much into comparing, though, unfortunately. Let me pull up my notes really quick. There are some side notes that I will be sending over to you, Annabelle and NISD, after this. But some of the thoughts and conversation pieces, the highlights that we were going over, in this kind of a just general overarching need, is discussing of how to support families in the parent engagement piece, right? So how are we going to help and support them through that? She had mentioned the video, possibly having like video trainings could be a helpful resource. So having teachers that were successful in their parent or family engagement, so having them share about their successes and what they have done. And she had mentioned the state of Ohio. And so that's something that I'll be reaching out to you guys afterwards about. But
Thank
yep, that was
you.
kind of, yep.
I
thank
like
you.
that success stories. Maybe it's something for us to consider as well, kind of like how we saw it in the Ripples framework or the Ripples toolkit. All right, thank you. And the last group, the Maryland toolkit. Anyone want to share?
Okay, yes. So in my group, we had Erica, Nathalie, Moira, Kate, Rosemary, and then Hector was helping us moderate. And we had a good conversation. We answered each question, and we decided that we were looking for a framework, that a user-friendly document that includes resources and information for both educators and families. And we felt like as a group that right now it feels like the framework is mostly geared toward educators. And so some possible sections for stakeholders in our document might include what you see here. We were thinking about a possible section for leaders, especially district and site leaders, and then maybe another section just for families, and then sections by grade level, so early childhood, elementary, and secondary. We looked at the Maryland document, but everybody in our group was pretty overwhelmed with it. We felt like it was too busy as a model for Nevada, and we were not able to assess the relevance of it because all of us found it difficult to just navigate it. The font was really small, and we also had concerns about ADA in terms of font size and how much color was in the document. So it might have some good information, but we really didn't get there just because the document was hard for us to navigate. We thought pictures could have been helpful, and overall, we concluded that the Connecticut document that we looked at the start of this meeting was a much more user format. And then we just talked a little bit about how is this going to be shared among stakeholders in our state? Will it have hyperlinks electronically, or will we also plan to provide it on paper for families? And so that's where we landed when our breakout room closed, and that's about as far as we got.
Thank you very much. Very insightful, very well thought out answers to your questions. We appreciate all the insights that you have, that your group has. And I guess we're ready to move on towards the end.
Thank you, Annabelle, and thank you everybody for participating, whether you did a share out or you were able to contribute to the conversations during your breakout groups. Again, that active participation is what helps us move this work forward together instead of one-sided. So we value that. We have our normal evaluation. Please scan this and complete this. We do look at it every single time. So today we know there were a couple little hiccups and it can just help us do better in the future. So go ahead, and I want to see everybody's phone. If you're out on your camera, like put it up, scan the QR code. And we also put the hyperlink in the chat, and go ahead and complete it. It's a very quick survey just to help us do better, so that we can improve our process and our collaboration as we go along. Go ahead and scoot to the next slide. The evaluation survey link is also in our chat. The second link, so again, pull out your phone, and this one, both of these links will be sent out in the communication by Nayesti to the full group as a summary of our meeting. This one is for our May and June meetings. So because we made the decision together to extend the timeline of our meetings as a committee, we do want to make sure we get these next two monthly calls scheduled as soon as possible. And we're also including new ways to engage with the content the deeper we dive into the revision. So if you're not able to make a meeting, that's okay. Please stay involved and continue participating, because other engagement types are on the horizon. So that way we can have more time together to really hear your feedback. Let's see. There is also continued opportunity to revise our definition. This is something we did in the very early months of our time together. So if you weren't yet here during that time, please go ahead and know that it's still an open opportunity. So the definition has not been finalized. We spent a lot of time there discussing it. All of the conversations that we have been having continue to grow as we build our knowledge and as we come back to you to share what did we do with what we've heard. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and just ask Hector to scoot back one more slide for the evaluation, and leave these final 2 minutes to you to scan it and get that turned in and send you along your way. We will be communicating with you about the meeting summary. We'll be posting the recording to our YouTube channel as well, and we'll be reviewing your evaluations as we see them come in. So thank you for being here, and we can't wait to see you next time.